Renu, will you give me a cue when to begin?
I think you should start. Maybe you can just start saying welcome and so on. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So very good evening to everybody who has joined. Welcome to the first session in the series of Praxis, and we are very, very excited to be with you all to discuss a very pertinent topic, which is about building your personal brand, and especially as we transition in our careers from either the campus to the corporate, or even if we are in the corporate itself, or we're still continuing to be in the campus. I think it's always important for us to consider what our personal brand is. So we're going to be doing the session over these 90 minutes to really understand what it means to have a personal brand and how to build a personal brand. Now, before we delve into it, I very quickly want to introduce the specialists and practitioners that we have who are joining us today. We have Dipali Nair, who is the Group Chief Marketing Officer for CK Birla Group. To introduce her very quickly, she's responsible for brand management, marketing, and corporate communications across CK Birla's group constituents. She has been a part of IBM in India and South Asia, and she also runs a very successful podcast known as Being CEO with Dipali Nair. She has extensive experience across industries, which really makes it extremely enriching. And I think from the fact that she's the chief marketing officer, is really going to be bringing in a lot of perspectives in terms of what it means to build a brand, because the personal branding concept also in some ways came from the world of marketing and how organizations started to set up their brands. So welcome, Dipali. We are very excited to have you with us. The next person I'd like to introduce is Vidhu. Vidhu is the CHRO, Chief Human Resource Officer at Tasty Bite Eatables. She's based out of Pune. And she's also had extensive experience, 15 years of experience in the field of HR across industries like FMCG and retail. She is, before joining Tasty Bite, she was part of GAP at the APAC level, at the Asia Pacific level. And beyond her professional achievements, Vidhu is passionate about coaching leaders, and she runs an Instagram community for people leaders by the name Leadership Lighthouse. Last but not the least, we also have Vikas Dua. Vikas is the head of people at Weber Shandwick, India. He is an author. He's a published author. He tells me that he has published, I forget the number, I think 3 books or something. So pardon my ignorance around that, Vikas. Please do correct me. Vikas is a leading voice in the HR community in India, and he has spent close to 2 decades in the domain holding leadership positions across the industry sectors. Currently, he's heading HR at Weber Shandwick, as I just mentioned, and he is an advisor to the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Vikas is also a blogger and podcaster on HR and career building. He shares his learnings under his self-designed HR in My Heart. I quite love that brand. And of course, we'll again get to learn what it means to have a brand in the way Vikas has branded his initiatives. So welcome all of you. We are very, very excited to have you with us. I am Aditi Malik. I'm the founder director of our Rohan Talent Solutions, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be anchoring this particular session and interacting with the panelists. My apologies, first of all, for the background noise. I've been caught in a bit of a jam, and I'm finally getting into a quiet place, so do bear with me. Very quickly wanted to set out the agenda, that the way we've divided the 90 minutes that we wanted to spend with you all is one, of course, the practitioners are there, so we do want to have a panel discussion. We will then open the session for a Q&A from all of you. And then we will put it, summarize the entire thing in terms of what is it that you all can go back and work with. So that's really where we are. Also, some housekeeping. You all are on mute. We invite you all to please keep sharing your questions into the chat and we will collect them. I mustn't forget to thank NHRDN at this point in time for the opportunity and for organizing this. We have Renu, who actually leads the the PRAXIS initiative, and I really commend her for her commitment to making a difference to the life of students. And of course we have Vibhuti Gupta, who's also has volunteered to be my tech producer today. So thank you, Vibhuti, for stepping up on this. And I'll actually invite you because I will have to get off the cab and get into the hotel. So Vibhuti will anchor this for a little bit. And last but not the least, we have Bhagat Singh ji and we have Avinash Khurana from the NHRDN office who are also supporting us. So we are very, very excited to have you with us. As I said, we're going to have a panel discussion. So Vibhuti, I'm going to hand this over to you for just a little bit till I'm able to get into a place. Allow me 5 to 7 minutes at best, and I will log back in. Thank you so much.
Is Vibhuti here?
Vibhuti?
I think Vibhuti is message saying she's not able to unmute herself.
Okay. We will do it. Just a second.
Bhagaji, you'll have to do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. Vibhuti, you can unmute.
Although I think this session is on personal break. Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session. I'm Vibhuti. I'm based in Delhi, and we're so excited to meet you, young minds, this evening. I know it's Friday evening, might be party time, etc., but we promise that we're going to make this 1.5 hour worth it for what you're spending this time with us for. Now, we understand that when you're a student, the main things that you are looking for is how to enter the world of corporate at this point of time. And while we prepare ourselves to enter the world of corporate, a lot of the lessons that we've been told is to prepare ourselves academically, right? Get good grades, get good marks, do right projects, etc. But often what gets overlooked while we step into from being students to the world of corporate is how we present ourselves, is how we brand ourselves, right? And the whole aspect of how we present ourselves and how we keep up to represent ourselves is what we called personal branding. And we thought that this is the aspect that students often do not know how to do, and that's why we thought that we'll bring up this particular session. So I'll and we have some really esteemed panelists with us. And I will now put the first, point across from Dipali, who heads marketing at CK Birla, to hear her perspective on what does a personal brand mean. She leads a brand for an organization, and really love to hear your views for what you define is a personal brand.
Thank you, Vibhuti, and thank you to NHRDN and Renu and all of you for doing this discussion. First, I think it's extremely relevant because personal branding gets interpreted in various different fashions by different people. But I'm going to go classical. I'm a student of marketing. I've done marketing for 30 years. Brands is what we've dealt with. While I have built brands such as Saffola, Medicare, HSBC, IBM, I think there is similarity in which the personal brand also ought to be looked at. So first of all, the definition. What's your brand all about? And in the context of a personal brand, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Therefore, you will never know exactly, but you've got to find out. You've got to think what people are going to say when you're not in the room. Those are essentially two things. One is all the things that you do and you stand for. Right? Second is the topicality of what is the last impression you left them with. These are the two things that you need to care about. So one is all about how you have, let's say, behaved. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, because my screen's suddenly gone. Yeah, okay, it's back. So what you need to do is look at the sum total of how you behave with people, what issues you've been speaking about, what you've read, what are the things that you said, and therefore people will think, are you erudite? Do you have a sense of humor? Are you trustworthy? Are you reliable? And they will form these impressions about you based on the experience that you've created. And the second thing is the topicality. What's the last conversation you did with them? Was it about travel? Was it about a hobby? Was it about a book that you read? Was it about studies? Was it about being nervous about entering corporate life? Was it about, you being confident? What was it about your family? Was it about cooking? So these are the two things that you must keep in mind. And remember that personal branding is not about projection. Personal branding is really about who you are and ensuring that who you are comes out in the best manner to the people who are experiencing you. Vibhuti, I'll leave it at that for now. I think Vibhuti needs to unmute herself.
Yes, I'm here back. Sorry. I think the system also wants to
Yes.
hear the panelists more, and that's why it's muting me again and again.
Vibhuti, Vibhuti, I'm making with a co-host.
Yes, very helpful. So thank you so much, Dipali. So what I take away from what you're saying is personal brand is what people remember of you once you have just been there in the room and exited it, or what people talk behind you, right? Um, Let me now bring up the next question to Vidhu that, with respect to students, right? What do you think are some of the opportunities where they should really take care of how they are presenting themselves?
Great question, Vibhuti. Leads up well coming after Dipali. So, hello, everybody, and thank you for having me here. I think building on to what Dipali said, right? First of all, what is a personal brand? It is, in my own words, it's basically attributes that differentiate you from the crowd, right? And especially in context to students now, question that Vibhuti you just asked about, what really comes across as a personal brand if you think of a student? You're going to get into a job market, you're going to be interviewing, and you'll be one amongst so many, right? And I think few things to me that stand out is skills. So grades to me is a foundation. I think it is about skills. It's about, what is my hip pocket skill? What do I bring unique to the table? And then to the Pali's point, how do I communicate it? So it's not just a projection. It's about who am I authentically? How do I communicate it? How do I position myself as a story? What's my story? How does that story consistently show up across platform? So that whole consistency, does my LinkedIn profile, if I'm positioning myself as a go-getter, does my LinkedIn profile give that inclination? Does that give that impression as well? Is something to be careful about. Is my resume talking the same thing? Was my conversation one with the recruiter highlighting the same strengths? Do my personal hobbies connect to that? So I think it's about how do I create that presence and aura which communicates that message again and again. So again, Dipali, you are a CMO, so you would understand how it is, right? Communication, you have to do it 7 times, 8 times for the message to get across. So before that interview, there is that work to do. During that interview, there's work to do, and there is work to do even towards the end. So I'll not spill a lot of beans here. We have a long conversation to go. We'll probably elaborate more on some of these points.
But Vidhu, I think I do want to reiterate what you said, because that is the most important thing, which is the consistency. You can't be two different people. So therefore, do not even try and project what you're not. It should not happen that people read a different personality on LinkedIn, and when they meet you, they find that they're meeting. So do not even make an effort to try to be something that you're not. Vidhu, thank you for saying that, because I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Vidhu, and thanks, Dipali, for adding on. So, Vidhu, you mentioned a few opportunities that I think can be relevant to students. One is at the point of an interview. One is at the point of, what their CV is how the CV is worded at. And a very interesting point that you also mentioned is LinkedIn, right? So my next question would be, Vikas, to you. How are you seeing the concept of personal brand not just being about, when you are there in person, and you speaking to somebody, you interacting with somebody in person, but also does this also apply to your online presence as well?
So great question, Vibhuti. And before I answer, of course, a note of thanks to NHRDN and the team for inviting me for this session. I also want to thank our lovely audience who's joined in this evening. I think we see more than 430, 439, 440 now, in fact. And
Yeah.
I think each one of you should give yourself a pat on the back. As we enter 2025 in a few months, I think it will be foolhardy to not have a personal brand. That's my very strong and personal belief. The reason is very clear. We are sitting in times which are very, very volatile, which are very competitive. This year has not been very great from a placement standpoint. It's challenging. And the reality is that every year we see 10 lakh and more kids pass out of our institutes. So next year, all of them are going to be looking for jobs, and ideally the job of their dreams. The way I see it as an HR professional is that to take on what Dipali and Vidhu have already shared, is that it's sort of like your resume plus plus. Because that two-pager document will land up at my desk, will land up at Vidhu's desk, will land up at Dipali's desk. But beyond that, we'll need more to select the few right candidates for our organizations from that 10 lakh plus pool. So LinkedIn becomes a huge support system in that regard, because it's really your new window, new CV to the world of jobs. And using that platform not just to showcase your academic and work history, but going beyond to showcase your personality is what can give you the edge. That's something that I see a lot of students already doing, and I've been fortunate enough because I was part of the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program, which had a lot of students in the cohort as well. And I know that a lot of young minds, infinitely more excited, more progressive, more charged up than the likes of me, are already maximizing the use of this platform to make their brand at such a young age. And I can only, visualize how far they'll go in life thanks to whatever steps they're taking right now. So, very well timed discussion, and thank you NHRD and once again for setting this up. But I can't stress enough on the fact that LinkedIn is where you should be making your primary home, if not your secondary home.
Sure. Thank you so.
I just want to add something there, Vibhuti, and I think Vikas very well put. Definitely there is something that makes it a little more challenging, if you are to think about a digital presence. But the generation that we're talking to is a digital native, and some of these things come naturally to you that didn't come naturally to us. I'll be humble about that. I think in addition to LinkedIn, I would strongly recommend, to make a lasting impression, look at having blogs. And again, it all goes back to, it has to be authentic. If you are not that person, it wouldn't work. But if you are someone who does all of this already, just find ways and opportunities to integrate all of it, podcasts, blogs, your presence on other social media platforms, which are social in nature, probably not professional. But how do you connect your personality as a whole, I think, is becoming very, very critical. Because Vibhuti, you started with that thought. Grades is foundation, right? You started with that thought. It is technical knowledge is base. What companies are looking for, or what really differentiates talent today, is really about soft skills, about problem solving, about conflict resolution. And those are life skills, is how I look at it. So we all, whether we're a student or a professional, have those skills somewhere, or have been exposed to incidents and situations where we would have displayed and demonstrated that. So how do you weave a story around it through various digital tools? To me, I mean, I see that as a very, very solid call out, and think LinkedIn is super critical, like Vikas said, but think beyond that is what my key message would be.
Sure. And
Vibhuti, sorry, I want to share some,
Sure.
data perspective over here. Okay. So LinkedIn is clear, the prominent choice of all recruiters, and therefore when you enter in the corporate world, it's clear one thing that is becoming equally important is that you clean up the rest of your social media. So there are two things that you must keep in mind. One is that whatever you put out on social media can never be deleted. Okay, that is one. Having said that, but please do clean it up, because a normal recruiter is not going to do forensics on you. So a lot of the times, what is happening is our Instagram is full of a lot of creative ideas that we're expressing. We're expressing things about, religion, about politics. We think we have a voice, and a lot of the younger minds do that. And I think as you enter the corporate world, there needs to be a mindset shift. You need to think about maturity. You need to think about demonstrating balance. You need to think about demonstrating, thoughtfulness. And therefore, you need to clean up the rest of your social media where you're present, be it Instagram, be it Facebook, be it Medium, be it if you, in case you have a YouTube channel, it is extremely important. When I've been coaching students and, especially the kids at the IIMs, I tell them this. I said, you might have established a YouTube channel for a certain purpose at a certain point of time, but that does not fit in with what you want to do in the future if you want to enter investment banking, let's say, which is very, very discreet, where you need to demonstrate that you are a discreet person. And that's that's almost like a tech functional skill that they're expecting out of you. Or if you want to be a management consultant, versus, let's say, something else, versus if you want to work in an advertising agency, then it'll perhaps be okay. So I think you need to then temper yourself depending on the career, ambition that you have. So that's one thing I wanted to say. The second thing also in context of all this is that don't get influenced by creators. Creators are looking at social media to make a living out of it, to monetize their social media. Unfortunately for you today, all advice is coming from creators. So you will go to Instagram and say, enter this masterclass to master Instagram. Okay, you'll also go on LinkedIn and say, enter this masterclass, pay up, and you'll become a LinkedIn expert. Remember, you're not getting hired for being a LinkedIn expert. You're not getting hired for being an Instagram expert. They're just windows into your personality. You don't need to be as prolific as the creators, and you don't really need to do everything as the creators do, but you need to demonstrate balance and consistency that, we've already spoken about. Vibhuti, I thought it was opportune for me to mention this here, so I took the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dipali, for your add-ons, and very, very, helpful for us to understand this from a perspective of a branding expert. Very helpful. And I see Aditi is in a comfortable space now. So Aditi, passing the lead back to you.
Thank you very much, Vibhuti. I really appreciate you stepping up, and of course, everybody else. And I think I managed to listen to most of your thoughts, Dipali, Vidhu, and Vikas. If I were to build on that conversation, and Dipali, I think you just sort of gave us the segue into it in terms of where one should look out for. But you're somebody who builds brands, right, for a living. That's what you do, and it's more at an organizational level. And as I said at the beginning, that a lot of the personal branding concept has come from the age-old marketing arena, so to say. So, what do you think are some similarities in terms of how you build organizational brands, and what we can, learn from there in terms of how we build our personal brands?
Thank you for asking that, Aditi. I think, one of the interesting things that you should, probably all of you can do that exercise in your mind, okay? Which is think of the brand Dove. Think of the brand Lux. Only 4-5 words will come to your mind, okay? And chances are for Lux, it'll be a line which is, filmy Sitaron ka Saundarya Sabun and nothing else, right? And maybe you will have some visuals in your mind. Now, they've spent years, okay, and crores of rupees communicating so many things and building a careful commercial of 30 seconds and 60 seconds, and they're digital and everything, right? But you remember very little of it, and you remember what is consistently being said. Remember that. That's exactly what you need to know about the personal brand. So it's not great, for you to have 10 hobbies.
Are we all losing it?
For you to have 10 hobbies. It is
it's getting a little patchy, Dipali.
You're all frozen from. Are you guys? I can see you guys. Do you want me to join back?
No, that's fine. We can hear you now. If you could just sort of go back to the
Yeah.
place of 10
Yeah,
hobbies.
so I was saying that instead of 10 things, focus on one. Focus on the 2 or 3 areas that you're good at. Focus on 2 or 3 areas which are truly your passion and build your brand around it. In fact, we do a grade when we are coaching leaders, and we tell them that just focus on 4 buckets of content, for yourself, especially on LinkedIn. So similarly, you should focus on the area that you're building your career in. You can focus on 1 or 2 hobbies, and you can focus on the thoughts in the areas in which you're expert at college, perhaps. Just have these 3 grids in mind when you're putting out, content. Do not try and be 15 different things. If you could just focus on 3 things is what I would say is a great formula.
I also want to double click a little bit on what you had said a little earlier, is a lot of sort of building one's brand is also about establishing one's reputation. And I know that in the marketing world as a CMO, a lot of it has got to do with reputation management, so to say. So if you could just also double click on that a little bit for us from a reputation standpoint, very young audience. And I think sometimes we think that our reputations get built much later in life. But that's a key aspect of what our personal brand is.
Yeah. Aditi, very good insight itself in your question, I think, which is that you don't die. Your reputation is not going to get built only after 10 years. Your reputation starts getting built today. And your reputation, you might think, will get built in even 2 to 3 years. No, your reputation will get built through that one interaction that you have with somebody. So the personal interactions have a lot, bigger role to play in building your reputation. And you need to ensure that social media that you have and the stuff that you're putting out is consistent with those experiences that you're creating for people. Now, this could be an experience with a recruiter. This could be an experience that you've created for your professor. This could be for your seniors, your alumni at college. But what is the experience that you're creating for them when you're interacting with them one-on-one? That has to be consistent with what you think your personal brand, those 3 things, the 3 grid elements that I've spoken about, and it needs to be reinforced by social media. Remember that, when you talk about reputation building, social media is a reinforcer. It's a reminder medium. Your primary medium is the interactions that you're having, the emails that you're writing, the LinkedIn messages that you're writing. Are they thoughtful? Are they personal? Those are experiences that you're creating. Those need to be the most important building blocks of your personal brand.
Thank you very much, Dipali. That was very insightful. Vidhu, this one is for you. In your experience, what do you think are some things that students are either unaware of or the least prepared for in terms of thinking personal brand?
Great question, actually. I think for me, in my experience as well, right, I feel the whole journey of building a personal brand starts with self-awareness. Yeah. Now, it goes back to everything we've talked about so far about being authentic. Now, a lot of times students come back and they question to say, how do I be authentic? Because naturally what's happening on ground is, and when I receive CVs, I'll be honest with you, they literally copy paste either of each other or from ChatGPT. And I mean, who's not using ChatGPT today? We are using as well, right? Like I'm using that. My point is that for any individual to really differentiate themselves out, will require a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness to say, who am I? And I think I would urge every student or everybody in the audience today, if you're really looking at building a personal brand, start asking this question of who am I? And, a lot of time, don't get caught up with the idea of saying that I don't have enough experience. So what do I write there? Because those are the tangible outcomes of this one answer, who am I? What do I bring on table? And I think that reflection to me is super critical, which almost every student tends to lose out on, right? And you cannot copy that from someone else because then you'll not be able to differentiate. You will not be able to have that consistency, what, Vikas, Dipali, and I've been talking about. It's very, very important. Ask yourself that question, know who you are, look at life experiences where you demonstrated that who you are attribute, right? Look out for motivators and aspirations that tie back to who am I as an individual, and then build that narrative and story, which would then reflect very authentically in how you show up in conversations and how you show up across digital media platforms, across your, like, it's a body language, everything shows up that, right? I'll give you a demonstrated with an example. I once was interviewing for a, sales role, and I met this girl who on her resume says, I'm outspoken, and I'm social, I'm outspoken. And she was totally opposite to what she had written over there. And I could just see it, right? Like, this person is not outspoken. And in that very moment, and she was a very, very bright kid, first ranker student, always doing the best, first division, everywhere on the extracurriculars as well, on placement, but she wasn't outspoken. She was a very studious resource. Now, my point is that she killed her chances of getting selected by having an inconsistent information come in place, because she assumed that the recruiter would like to hear the word outspoken, or she probably copied it from someone, right? So I think, and at the same time, I have another student who was not outspoken, but was so confident, walked in the room and said, okay, here are the things you're looking for from the role. And this is where I come from. And my style is more individual interaction based versus one to many. But I do that very well. And this is how I do it. Now, and I'm giving a very tactical example to help relate and understand. Any job you apply for or any role you apply for will have multiple dimensions to what an organization is looking for. Rather than worrying about meeting all and copy pasting or emulating that, projecting that, reflect on saying, what do I bring on table? How would I still deliver to those outcomes by being who am I? And then all of your stories, your presence, your media will amplify that message, and it'll make so much more sense. You will feel a lot more confident and proud of your own strengths, and you'll be able to really convince the panel, recruiters, people. It'll reflect in your body language. So it's very, very consistent. So I would definitely say that it all goes back to self-awareness, authenticity, knowing who you are, and then weaving that whole story together. And then, yes, please use ChatGPT to polish that language, to get the best version of that story, get ideas, talk to people, see how are they writing. Definitely do all of that. But let the starting point be that authentic version of who am I.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful point, Vidhu, that you said. I think what happens with a lot of tools and technology, right? For some strange reason, we become slaves to technology, whereas we are supposed to enslave technology to support what we want, And I think that's such a deep message that you're giving, that if I know who I am, then I I can leverage Chat GPT to write it well. But that doesn't mean I write something that I'm not. And I think that also then builds on what Dipali said in terms of your reputation, because that's going to go a long way. And this recruiter may actually end up telling somebody else that, look, this is what was written on the resume, and the person didn't show up like that. And I think that's just way too huge a risk to take. The one other point that you picked up, Vidhu, which I really would like to double click on is, when we're at the campus and we're transitioning to the corporate world, I think we're sort of also suffering from this, I do not have enough experience. And obviously you don't have any experience. This is your first time. But as what you said, Vidhu, is there are so many life experiences we've in any case had, right? You may have played a sport. You may have been the goalkeeper in your football team for what you may, or you just may be a great badminton player. These are great experiences to talk about. And that's what recruiters are looking for in terms of what of yourself you're really able to bring, and what are the life lessons that you have learned from there. So thank you so much, Vidhu. And I just thought I'll double click on that because that was just such a valuable point and I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Vikas, over to you. So you're an HR expert, and HR in my heart, so there's a lot of heart going in over there.
Here as well.
Oh, how beautiful. Um, what are organizations that are really looking for in terms of attracting talent? And I heard you talk about the number of students that will be out available, for jobs. And in fact, there was this really interesting research just a couple of months back, I think, which said that while we have the most attractive demographic, but it seems that most of our youngsters are coming across as being unemployable. It's not, I don't think that they're unemployable, but there's a certain perception that's getting created. So if you would expound on that and share what are your thoughts and what are some things from both sides, right? From a recruiter side and from a student side that we should really be working on to be able to work on having the decision working in our favor, if you may.
Sure. Happy to take that. And I think, Vidu explained it beautifully. I think I couldn't have said it better. Fact is that from a job or a recruitment standpoint, I think what HR ultimately is looking for a person job fit. I mean, that's non-negotiable, that you fit and you check all the boxes in terms of, what you bring to the table for the particular role that you're applying for. That is table stakes. Where personal brand and the other add-ons come in is really the icing on the cake, as they say. And to that extent, yes, I mean, there's so much and more that one can use or one can do to project one's personality, showcase oneself, and be able to create a positive impression on the recruiter's mind, because ultimately that's what you want to do. What I've also realized is the fact that often, like Deepali said, it's not about just being out there, visible, participating in every game or sport or trending reel, but really being able to showcase your own unique, authentic self. And it reminds me of a story I heard once where it compared personal branding to really showcasing yourself in terms of that one unique pair of yellow shoes that you possibly have, or a tattoo, or a pink bag, because that kind of becomes your go-to or calling card in your network, right? They always refer to as, "Oh, you're that got that crazy fancy bag, and where is it today?" You often hear that. So as a student, it's really important to be able to go onto social media or create a blog like Vidu also alluded to, or write a book, contribute in some way where you can show it as your add-on to your CV and add on to your personality, helping the recruiters get a better sense of who you are. And the fact is that the world is moving at such a fast pace that, and I think students are beginning to realize this. My own elder daughter just turned 16, just eligible to create a profile on LinkedIn, still in school, 11th standard, came up to me and said, "I want to create my account." And I said, "Go ahead," because she also understands the value of the platform and where it's going to be a few years from now when she's actually looking at university admissions, or a few years later, corporate jobs. So, fact is that I should not be using the word given I'm biased, but the smarter ones are already doing it.
Yeah. And do you think this also helps in the ability to network effectively, Vikas?
100%, because the fact of the matter is, I rewind the clock 20 years ago when I started my career and got into the workspace. I was at best known in my office building, office floor. Maybe a few years later, people across different cities in our companies, other offices possibly knew me because we got onto con calls or video meetings and the like. But fast forward today, and the LinkedIn platform and other social media opens you up to networking globally, and mm, you know to be able to present yourself or introduce yourself or get to make valuable connections unhindered by both time as well as distance. So it's a huge advantage, the internet and all of these platforms which have now emerged, which allow you to make the right connections, which of course then allow you to make your own career moves or open opportunities for yourself in the ways that you would want them to.
Hmm. I'm also curious, is there any etiquette in terms of networking on social media?
Yes. There is,
tons.
there
And I'm
is.
sure
Dipali is quickly
Dipali
nodding
would
at
be
it.
the right person to share that. And I think I also have very strong views, given that I've grown up in a family of women and I have worked with a lot of women. And it appalls me whenever I get a mail or I hear about the kind of messages they get on even professional platforms like LinkedIn. So, I mean, the blood boils, and frankly, I wonder whether we've even evolved as a society. But yeah, you can see that anger already rising, so I'll pass it on to Dipali.
And Dipali, before you answer that question, I'm going to just build on a couple of other pieces to this, and we'll be curious to understand. Uh, so, one also, if you could expound on the etiquette, and if you have ever been asked for your opinion in terms of, somebody being considered for a job, and you went back and give us some of those, that texture as well for us to understand.
Is that for me?
So
Uh,
about the
Oh,
Just giving it to Dipali, and
sure.
yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about the etiquette second, but first I want to talk about a few things that came to my mind when, Vikas and Vidhu were talking. One is that small things matter, and Vidhu spoke about, what you're writing in your resume. So one of the small things that strikes me is that when you're coming out of college, you're seeing the resumes and you see the email IDs, and there'll be, Rakesh Sharma the Great, okay, and Ravi Verma the James Bond at gmail.com. And so, I mean, guys, clean it up, okay? It is better to have Ravi Sharma 22nd September 84, rather than, having Iron Man or, some such weird things, that happen. But these small things extend to other places also. The profile picture on your WhatsApp, the profile picture on your LinkedIn, the pictures that you have on your Instagram, they are all building your, reputation, the question, that you were, asking about. And now let's look at the plus side of it. So I've told you what to remove and what to get rid of. What is the plus side of it? Now, I managed to do it, although I'm older. I do it. Okay, which is at the rate Dipali. Okay, N-A-A-I-R. You look me up, it's the same everywhere, right? Now, if you can manage to get that kind of consistency, use the same picture if nothing else. Have your profile picture the same. Around the time that you're entering the corporate world, getting into the recruitment scene, have a great picture, put it on your resume, put it on your LinkedIn, put it on your Instagram. Have the same picture. These things matter. These are small things, but they matter a whole lot, right? So, these can also be called etiquettes. But now let's come to the etiquette bit, that Aditi and, Vikas that you were talking about. And Vikas, I love you for saying this, that, your blood boils, because there's a whole lot of weird stuff that goes on, but I will not talk about the weird stuff, okay? I think let's look at the students who are here today. They would love to build a network. They would love to send connection requests to, 200 important people, which is great. Mention a reason why you are sending a connection request. You're always looking at your point of view. Put yourself into the shoes of the person that you're sending the connection request to. Don't just say, I want to be a mentee. Say, as a mentee, what value will you add to the mentor? Have you even thought about it even once? If you take that one step back today, it will be the most important step. In your connection request, tell the mentor why should they be connected with you. What insight will you bring to them? They all also want to learn new things. They want to learn about Gen Zs, Gen Ys. They want to learn about the new things happening at your college. Just turn the whole thing around. And one of the other small things that matter is use Grammarly, use ChatGPT, get the grammar right. Don't write incorrect English. To the older generation, people who are in positions of power to give you jobs, those things matter. Okay, you may think it's not important, but it is important to them. So you need to start looking at their point of view, the people who are, recruiting you. So getting the language right and sending connection requests, right? And that's where your networking starts. But I think the weirdest thing that happens is you get a connection request and next day you say, okay, can you, here's my resume. I want a job. Okay, fine. Till then also it's fine. And I typically will write back saying, okay, apply here or whatever, or we may not have a job, which fits your profile, etc. Can you get me any job? Okay. Now the thing is, one is you're demonstrating that you have no goals in life. You have no thinking by saying this immediate action. Second is, I don't know you from anywhere. Why will I endorse you? So you need to think through your networking, get people to experience you, your professors, your teachers, maybe an uncle who works for the corporate world, maybe an aunt who works for the corporate world. These are the people through whom you build connections. Go and meet people, go and spend time with them. You know, do internships, do projects, do them for free, by the way, okay? And that will really matter to people. So I have borrowed on how to approach your corporate life. Aditi, I know your question was on etiquette, but I think the most important one to me was don't just send random connection requests. You know, write a note. And second is, don't be, you know, second day send them your resume and third day say, get me any damn job. You know, and remember that not just at this point of time, remember that for the next 10 years, by the way, yeah? For your second job and your third job and the fourth job, this advice that I'm giving you, you know, will matter. And get rid of the weird email IDs and, you know, have great pictures. I mean, I have recently experienced a person who was asking me for an internship. We gave that person an internship. And, you know, I was on that person's Instagram. And I think personally, now look at it from my sensitivity. Your recruiters are going to be in my age group, your parents' age group sometimes, okay? Really, really objectionable pictures with that person's girlfriend. Now, you might have an opinion saying, it's my girlfriend and it's my Instagram. It doesn't matter to us. Why should it matter to you? The problem is I'm the recruiter. Now, that and the recruiters are at a certain age. So, you know, which is why I say, you know, clean up your social media. Yeah. So, Aditi, that's my point of view. Everybody may not agree, but I think it's better to be, you know, safe rather than sorry when it comes to building your reputation and building your network.
Vikas, sorry, yeah, Vidhu, go ahead, and then I'll go to Vikas.
If you have time, I wanted to illustrate that with an example. Like, you know, Dipali, when you were talking, I was reflecting on something. You know, every day we encounter so many students and candidates, to be honest, right? And I was thinking why somebody stands out for us. And I really wanted to give one example because it's very relatable for the audience we have today. So I had almost 6 months back attended I'm a foodie, by the way, okay? So I'd attended a foodie event. This is a popular group, Gurgaon Food Freak. Those who are in Gurgaon, they know that, okay? So I am part of that group. I went attending, it's a foodie event, new restaurant, you go, you get to review, etc. And I met someone else over there who'd brought their daughter. So you could bring your plus ones. Okay. I went with my husband and this woman brought her daughter with her. Okay. Now this girl is probably younger than the audience we have here, doing graduation in something called sustainability, very different topic. Okay. And she was sitting next to me. We were trying to have a conversation. She asked me about where I come from. And the moment she heard I'm a HR person, I saw a glitter in her eye to say, okay, wow, I'm sitting next to the right person. And we started making a conversation. Trust me, the 2 hours, it was a sit down dinner, were the best 2 hours of my, so many of those events that I've attended. The amount I learned from this young girl sitting next to me. And I'm telling you what I liked about her and what I did to her. So something to take away from. This girl's touch was very polite. There was an aura, there was a story she kept highlighting about who am I. She was able to articulate for me, this is what I like, this is my opinion on these matters, this is why I picked up a course like this is what matters to me. Here is a kind of a role I'm looking for. I want to understand more about corporate. I'm curious. Tell me more. She showed curiosity. She asked me very specific, pointed questions to say, you know, I read a lot of case studies about organizations doing CSR and all of this. Tell me, how does this work inside? What is needed? So in that moment of 2 hours, she asked me so many questions. She displayed curiosity. She positioned her story as a brand to say, this is who I am, this is what I like doing, this is what I have done, this is what I want to do, here are my challenges, this is what I struggle with. And that conversation left a lasting impression on me, right? I did not commit in the moment to help her, by the way, but there was something that drew me around her. Like I kept thinking, like I remembered her name, I remembered her personality. And, you know, I own this, Aditi talked about it in my introduction. I run an Instagram channel for, you know, people leaders. It's called the _leadership_lighthouse. Okay. And I was looking for an intern who would help manage social media for me. Okay. And This girl had nothing to do with it, guys. She was a sustainability student, but there's something that clicked. And I looked at resumes, I'd met so many people, but my heart was there. I said, hey, why don't I check with her? So I reached out to her mother through a network and I said, hey, I want to speak to Sanskriti. And I got across to her. I spoke to her and I said, here's something I'm doing. I know this is absolutely not related with what you were talking about that day, but here's what I think you could learn from it. I could learn ABCD things from you. This is what impressed. Would you be interested? I'll respect your decision if you decide otherwise, and this is what I can pay. And we work together now, by the way. She works with me on that page, right? From absolute, that wasn't her vision. She didn't want, I mean, that she never stated she want to do anything to do with social media. Uh, but we landed up together. I'm learning so much from her. She tells me she learns a lot from me and this whole experience. But what I'm trying to suggest, and I really wanted to illustrate that example, it's about how you come across in that crowd of people and how you gain attention, how you are confident about your story and you're able to kind of, position that story. It really makes a lot of difference, guys.
And
It
Vidhu,
does.
thank you for illustrating what I was saying earlier, that social media is an add-on. Personal
Yeah,
interactions is what really build your reputation and help you network.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
absolutely.
I'm going to now segue to the last-ish question before we start taking questions from our audience. And because I'm sort of sending this off your way. So there's a lot that we've said. So there's in-person presence and then there's digital presence, right? So everything is sort of coexistent in that sense. Now, a lot of times people are also only meeting us through the Zoom screen, right? So I don't know where to qualify that. Is that in person or is that digital or it's some midway, some
Midway.
virtual world that is happening? But really in terms of, that presence, because we will not always have an opportunity, like Vidhu got an opportunity to meet this young lady. Our audience may not always get an opportunity to meet in person. So what would be your advice or suggestions to them from that perspective?
Great. I've borrowed a lot of what I know of personal branding from the world of marketing and brands. And Dipali would love me for this back once again, because I grew up and spent a lot of my formative corporate years in Wipro. Again, IT company, services space, and in a very similar space to what a Infosys or an HCL or a TCS would do. And anyone who knows anyone working in these organizations will be familiar with these guys roaming around with their shirts carrying the logo on the chest, either the TCS logo or the Wipro logo. And that obviously inspired me a lot. It was a badge of honor in a sense for me, and I used to feel so kicked about it as a young professional, wearing it at the airport and seeing heads turn, and that kind of made me feel very good about myself. So when it came to personal branding as well, I've realized that LinkedIn is one piece of it. It's one small piece in the puzzle, like I think Vidhu also alluded to earlier. You can create a website, you can write a book, you can create a cup like the one I've used today, and this also becomes a sort of, you can say, physical slash digital mechanism to showcase my personal brand. So the sky is the limit when it comes to creativity. I also have similarly a HR Maha t-shirt, which I wear to all my HR conferences. So people start associating this brand with a Vikas Duan. Often I'm called out in conferences or in meetups. So you're the HR in my heart guy. In fact, it's happened a couple of times in the Delhi metro as well. So which I use for my daily commute. So the idea is that as long as you are able to create an authentic brand, which you kind of consistently drive and nurture and grow, you should be able to, utilize it in a way that, again, people start associating that brand with you and understanding that this is what you stand for. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm just going to build on that a little bit as well. And I'm also going to get anecdotal over here. So I remember this one time I got onto a Zoom call with somebody. And it was a one-on-one discussion. And this person showed up, young person, I think first time, just very new in the company. And he showed up in his vest with clothes hanging at the back. For me, at that moment, I was like, are you really serious about, what this is about? And I think a lot of times we tend to be dismissive about this. In fact, even not switching on a camera makes a statement, for instance. You know, a
Correct.
blank screen and people are wondering, like, if you don't even think it's important for you to show up on camera, you know, what's the brand? What are you telling us about yourself? So I think it just needs a lot more intentionality and thought in terms of how we choose to show up in every interaction. In person, it's better because one sees the whole of us. But on the Zoom screens, I think because it's limited, it's also sort of amplified a lot more, I think, than it would be in person. So so I thought I'd just sort of leverage that moment to share my experience, which completely, like, I didn't even know how to deal with it. I was so gobsmacked for the most part that I didn't know what to say next. But you know, like Dipali said, I think some of these things, there's talk about, you know, why we should ask people to dress up in a particular way. But then, you know, our generation, I think we just there's a certain norm around it. So I think that's what our message will be. Very quickly, last, and I would really request our panelists to be now very sharp. So this is like a rapid fire. Top 3 tips or tricks that you think the audience here can use. I'll go in the same order: Dipali, then Vidu, then Vikas, but this is really rapid fire. Dipali, top 3
Okay, you didn't tell me there was going to be a rapid fire. Okay.
Oh, well, I'm just thinking on the go.
Yeah. I think know yourself. Decide the 3 things that you really want to have your content buckets all about. Create one-to-one personal experiences and think of social media only as add-on.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dipali. I'm going to Vidu, your top 3 tips and tricks.
I think the first one for me would be authenticity. Be authentic, know yourself, and be consistent.
Lovely. Vikas?
Sure. So Dipali has stolen mine, but and Vidu as well. But I'd say maybe authenticity, consistency, and being proactive.
All right. And now I'm going to flip it. 3 no-nos, strict no-nos. Dipali, you go first. Rapid fire.
No, you have to let
Reverse the
Vikas
order
go
also.
first this
Reverse
time.
order.
Yeah, you have to reverse the order. Vikas will go first.
Okay, no, then
Cool.
Vikas, 3 no-nos.
Sure. So I think just the opposites. I get inconsistency, uh, negative content, polarizing content, flaming content. Avoid that, and of course, over promotion as well, because no one wants to see too much of anyone, I think.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Vidu, your 3 no-nos.
Yeah, it's very difficult. But anyways, I can't complain. I'm in the middle. Okay. So I think inconsistency to me is number 1. I think the second very important for me would be, you know, copy pasting or exaggerating, not being yourself. Again, it's all opposites, by the way. Okay. And the third one would be really about not the body language, not paying attention to the non-verbal cues, basically.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. To me, carelessness is a no-no. So be it grammar, be it the way you're writing, be it Mr., Mrs., whatever addresses you're throwing them. Students do get that wrong and they don't pay attention. Read. So I think that's a one big no-no. I think the second big no-no is not knowing enough about the people that you're meeting. You don't do the homework. You think that you can go into the meeting and ask questions. I think that's not fair. Try and know about the company you're meeting, the recruiter you're meeting. Even if it's an informal meeting that your parents may have set up with somebody that you're going and meeting in the corporate world, today everything is available on Google, Twitter, LinkedIn. So I think that's another no-no. Not preparing, for even informal meetings is a big no-no. Third no-no. Not reading newspaper, not knowing what's happening in the news. I'm not saying read a newspaper. You can read it online. You can follow YouTube, whatever methodology that you like. But not being aware of what's happening around you, is a big no-no. It can be in the domain that you like. If you're interested in sports, let it be about sports. But I think that being aware of current affairs is extremely important even today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dipali. My word for that was not being lax or lackadaisical in terms of the way we show up, because our brand really suffers if we're not on top of our game. So thank you so much, all three of you. We're going to open this for the Q&A. And then we will do another summary. We're going to spend a few minutes just tying it all up together and give you, sort of a construct that you can work on. So Vibhuti, would you please share what are some questions that are available to that the audience may have?
Sure, sure. So
I think
Aditi,
there's one. Sorry, I read something which was interesting. Bhavna is asking about the fact that
yes.
does your personal brand evolve over time? I think it's a very interesting question. Whoever wants to answer that.
So I'll just repeat the question for everybody's view. Bhavna's question is that how has the panel experienced your own personal brand evolve over time as you have evolved as a person and as a professional? And how have you done that by staying most authentic to your own self?
I can take it up. Okay. So long answer short, does it evolve? Yes, of course. As we build on new experiences, new skills, it keeps building on to that, right? But does the core change? Probably not, right? I can give my own example. I mean, when I was a fresher interviewing, I was, the personal brand statement I would always wear is to say, I'm a problem solver. Okay. I think and I'm just giving one dimension of it. How has that evolved today? I mean, today, if people meet me and what I project is, I love challenges. I love turning around situations. So the core of it still remains problem solving because that is who I am. That is what fuels my brain. But how that manifests is changing because of how is basically like, how do I demonstrate all of that in the experiences, etc., or my interactions with people? I hope that answers.
I'll also just chip in here if that works. So definitely for sure, as we grow up and as we spend more time building a personal brand, and as time lapses, I think we also evolve as human beings and our knowledge base increases, our connections and our exposure increases, and that somewhere drives the personal brand and what we're able to show out of ourselves. What also matters, and something I've observed personally as well, is the fact that even the platforms which we are using to kind of showcase our personal brand are also evolving. So a couple of years ago, LinkedIn, for example, brought in the LinkedIn video or LinkedIn Live feature, which allows one to interact with others in a similar format. They've then brought in the LinkedIn audio events, which allowed everyone to do what Clubhouse tried to do, bringing in audio conversations. And now, most recently, they are now pushing video like Reels, similar to the Instagram feed. So if you are wanting to kind of showcase your personal brand or keep making a mark and establishing yourself, then you also have to somewhere evolve and utilize these new features to showcase yourself in the right way. So that's also something you need to take care of during this journey.
Sure. I think one overarching question that's coming on chat, and because pacing that from what you're saying, is how can one enhance their LinkedIn profile? Because I guess that is the first window for what somebody presents to recruiters or to potential people that they want to network with from a corporate side. So what are some of maybe the top 3-4 things that one can do to enhance their LinkedIn profile? Aditi, if you would want to direct it to somebody.
No,
You want me to?
yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry.
You want me to take yeah. I think, LinkedIn themselves offer a great tool. They give you a star rating, for improving your LinkedIn profile. So use the back panel, use a good profile picture, write your resume header, write the resume in so many characters that they allow you to. Send requests to people that you know who are senior, and start sharing stuff. It's not writing original. I mean, if you're constrained and if you think you can't write, start sharing relevant and erudite and academic stuff, if I may say so. So it's actually quite simple. The second tip that I want to give you is that there is something called an SSI score that LinkedIn gives you. It's a free score. You can Google it and you can check your SSI score. Chances are it's going to be low. If you're doing the right things over a period of time, you can see your SSI score moving. So, don't be worried about that it's 30 today or 35. I mean, it's good to have an above 60 score. Don't worry about that you're at 30, 35 because you're starting out, but see that it's improving. It gives you points for consistency, it gives you points for being present, but it also gives you points for networking and for building the profile, that I said. So LinkedIn actually equips you very well if you spend time on your LinkedIn profile.
I'll just add something to what Dipali and Vikas have already said, guys. I think testimonials are a great way to enhance your profile. And again, don't fake it. Like, really invite recommendations from people who worked with you, who've interacted with you, and let them share their authentic experiences with you. I think it helps. Like, as a HR leader, every time, I think the first thing we do is we go back to the LinkedIn and see who this person is. At least I make sure I always go through the recommendations, because that really tells me the perception this person is having on others. So, yeah.
And how does one
Great
do
point,
that?
actually. Everybody.
Sure. One of the follow-up questions is that, mostly for people who are freshers who joining the corporate for the first time, what are some of these suggestions for what they should include to enhance their LinkedIn profile? And also associatedly, what can they do to identify their target audience and increase their reach on LinkedIn?
I think the first question we've already answered, and I think Vibhuti's point on asking for recommendations, which is testimonials on LinkedIn, is equally important. Apart from the profile building, how I mentioned, that's what you need to do. The second thing of finding your target audience, you don't need to find your target audience. You know your target audience. You're entering the corporate world, so therefore everybody on LinkedIn is your target audience. The recruiters, people who influence the recruiters, are your target audience. The companies that you want to apply to. So try and go and follow those companies. Try and send connection requests to people, people who are working over there. But like I said earlier, with meaningful notes and the reason for why they should be connected with you. And look at the posts that they're putting out. Comment on those posts meaningfully, not just nice. It's good to see this. But a meaningful comment which demonstrates that you've actually read what is being put out.
Yeah, just adding on to that, I think one thing we should all understand, when an organization is looking to hire a fresher, they are not hiring you for your technical knowledge, they're hiring you for your attitude. I think just understanding that becomes super critical, because then how you project or what you write on your profile becomes equally critical, right? So a lot of times people will do live projects, and if in the absence of those live projects or internships, they will say, how do I fill my LinkedIn, because I don't have that relevant experience. So my suggestion in that case is, live projects are just to get a insight into how corporate works, to bridge the gap between campus to corporate. It's not really gaining any technical skills. No 2 months or 3 months of a project will give you that. So rather than mentioning about, here's what I did, this is the market research I did, I think one way to stand out is to really talk about the skills gained. What did you learn out of that entire experience? How does that build onto your own strength? I think just calling those things out, which are reflective of skills and behaviors, would be much, much stronger proposition versus really struggling to capture the technical strengths and the breadth of the work that you've done.
Yeah, I think Pami just yeah, go
Sure.
ahead, Vikas.
Yeah, so now LinkedIn, the LinkedIn CV or the format has really evolved to a point where it captures a lot of information, including community service and social work and projects, awards, and things like that. So as a student, you should be focused on creating a profile which differentiates you from the rest of your batch as a starting point. Forget about other institutes or the entire 10 lakh which are going to graduate next year. What is it that you are unique for? What is it that's special that you bring to the table? And it could be like, again, we do said it at the top of this session. Is it a sports, achievement that you're very proud about, which you've, acquired? Is it a passion for reading? Is it musical qualification that you have? Showcase that some in the profile. There's a about section as well. Use that very creatively. Use that to bring in a sense of your personality, because that may not be so visible later down on your LinkedIn profile. So if you can do that, uh, that's where you have a golden opportunity to, make a mark on the recruiter who's scanning 50 profiles and trying to find out 5 or 10 that he or she wants to shortlist and call for an interview.
Mm. I was just going to build. I think the whole idea of having a personal brand is standing out fundamentally. It's about having a unique voice. It is about having a unique presence. And I think that's the creativity, because that you're possibly alluding to. Because how do I stand apart? And I think we just get so caught up in the conformance of, what should I write? Should I write what the other person in my class has written as well? May not get us very far. And I'm seeing some of these questions that are sort of emerging, and I'll club them together, which is about what should I even write? Should I talk about my 6-month experience, or should I just sort of pretend to have a certain personality? I think we've spoken about that. The pretentiousness will not go a long way, because the moment you'll interact with people, they will know who you are, right? And really, you will have to dig deeper. I meet students every now and then and say, no, but we're so young. How will we know what we really want? Well, it's about time that we started to explore that, right? Let's go out and see what is it that we enjoy a lot. Even if you don't know, the big question of what is your purpose in life is too heavy a question. But what do you enjoy? What is it that really gives you that kick in life and you want to get out of bed for? I think that's a great starting point. Create a narrative around that. There are people who just want to get up because they get out of bed because they really feel that they want to go out and have a great game of sports. Nothing wrong with that. And a great game of sports will help you to work with people, will work on your, team skills and leadership qualities. Finding those pieces out, I think, is really where the magic happens. Any other questions? Yeah, sorry. Last one question, because then we do want to wrap up.
Okay, sure. I think there are so many questions on how to, present yourself authentically or not, which we have sort of covered. So I'll not go into those. But one of the other topics that has been called out is how can one network better to, create a brand for themselves? So maybe touch upon that.
Now we're opening it to the panel. Whoever would like to take that question.
So starting point for networking, the right way is really to identify the network one would want to be a part of and want to contribute towards. Like Deepali said, it's not about just reaching out to random people and sending requests. And at the same time, the flip side is also that today, we live in a world where the follower count seems to be very important to everyone, be it any platform. And frankly speaking, I don't think it does anything beyond a certain point, unless one is aspiring to become a creator and monetize it, like Deepali said earlier. So the focus should not be on the number game. The focus should be more on the quality of connections one is making. And really it depends in terms of, where one wants to go. Is it the automotive sector, for example, is an area of passion for me? Then maybe, reaching out to some of your seniors who work in those companies in that sector, some faculty members who are experts in automotive engineering and things like that, some professional executives who you see delivering talks at campuses, who are in that sector. Those could be a starting point for you. And the beauty of such social networks is they are networks. So one person may open doors for another five, that other five may open doors for another 25, and that will grow organically with the right kind of community and folks that you become a part of.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing that, there is a lot of time expectation that I've become connection with this person today. Tomorrow, he or she will deliver something to me. Networks deliver over a long period of time. They are not a short-term strategy. Networking is a long-term strategy. In fact, I was once asked to do a session on networking, and I said this. I said the starting point is it's like neki kar darya mein dal. So, first you have to ask, what are you doing for the people that you're networking with? If you can answer that question, then expect to pay back from the network. So networking is a great idea, but it's a long-term strategy. It's not a short-term one.
Yeah, if I may very quickly build on that, Dipali, I think the intention of networking, I think every time we network, we're like, what is it that I can get from this person? And that can be an extremely I think it's disrespectful at many levels because you're just expecting people to give to you, but it's really about how you can add value, and that's what we're asking you, encouraging you to consider. How can you really be the person who can make a difference? What is it that you bring to the table, and it would benefit that person to get to know you as well. So that would hopefully be beneficial for you.
Aditi, can I add something
Yes.
there? Like, something which is super pressing, I feel what is happening today is, and this doesn't apply to this audience, to everybody, we are so obsessed with the idea of networking. I think somewhere fundamentally, and I would take ownership and accountability for that. We miss telling people, we always say, okay, networking is important for you to grow. But what we miss telling people is that just having XYZ number of followers on LinkedIn is of no good, right? So I really want to emphasize, guys, what do we mean when we say networking is important? You don't have to become Ankur Warik, who I saw somewhere here. You don't have to worry about having X number of followers, etc. That's not what we're talking about. What we mean when we say you need to network, and this applies to all of us as well, by the way, is really being intentional about building relationships with people where you can have a mutual exchange of learning and information, right? I think if I were to put it very simply, that is what it is. So if you are someone who genuinely wants to learn and grow, then there is merit in you participating in LinkedIn groups, discussion chats. A lot of ideas Dipali and Vikas have already shared, so I won't repeat myself. Know that whether you're that person, do you want to do that? And like Aditi said, thankless job. Or Dipali, you said that. No, dariya mein dal. Matlab, don't do it with an intention of saying, "Aaj network bana, to matlab meri job lag gayi." That is not how it works out at all, right? So genuinely wanted to clarify that, and it's okay. I've seen people being successful, especially at the fresher level, not having the network, guys. Trust me, it becomes a non-negotiable as you grow, but at least at the fresher, that's not a must have skill. So don't get obsessed about just getting people on your network. Just something I wanted to really leave you with.
Sure. Thank you very much. We're at about 7:17, and I would take this opportunity to thank our panelists. That was really lovely. And I see the questions are just continuously coming in. So I'm guessing we'll find a way to respond to all the questions, maybe not right in the moment because we are pressed for time. And I do want to summarize this conversation. So let me just very quickly pull up my deck. And just sort of I will do my best because this was a very deep conversation. So I do want to do justice to the conversation and leave you all with some, practical tools in terms of what is it that you can do to start working on your brand statement and how you start building your brand. That's the first thing, is really putting pen to paper. I think will really help you all to start thinking about how you're going to be building your brand. So if you give me a moment, I will very quickly be pulling up my screen. Let me know it's visible to everybody. If you just give me a thumbs up, I will say fantastic. Thank you. So this is one of my favorite quotes. It says that your brand is what other people say about you when you are not in the room. And I think this is a great litmus test. What is it that people say to you? So I'm going to take a little moment. I'm going to give you all actually a moment to think about it. Here's my first question. I want you to just sit back, and I know some of you, I can see some of you on the screen, you're taking copious notes as well. So it may be a good idea for you to just start listing down. If you were to just reflect on what are some words people who know you would, the words that they would use to describe you as a person. This could be your teachers, it could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be, just people you interact with. What do you think are some words they would use to describe you? And if you could just draw up a very quick list for us, I'll give you a minute. And it can be a laundry list. Please don't overthink it. And then give me a thumbs up as soon as you have some words going there, so we know how many people have sort of got this going. All right, lovely. My second question to you is, how would you describe yourself? If you had to write some adjectives for yourself, what would those be? And now I want you to see, is there a convergence between the words that others you think will use for you? And usually it's a good idea to go out and ask people, right? Maybe you want to spend some times after this session today just to interact with people, and you don't have to tell them how you describe yourself, but just ask them, right? What are some words that come to your mind the moment you think of me? What, or think of my brand? And that's a great litmus test, and see if there's any convergence, because that is really the fundamental. Or everybody, all our panelists have spoken about getting to know yourself. And there are three key things that we really want to talk about when we are knowing about ourselves. How you describe yourself, how others describe you. And the third piece, actually, that's where Vidhu ended, was the intentionality of it. How do you actually want to be described by others? I can always turn around and say that I'm somebody who's very passionate. Others don't necessarily use that word. And I don't know whether I actually want to be experienced as somebody who's very passionate about my work, right? Sometimes it could be a disservice. And other times I have, for example, been told that I come across as somebody who's a snob. I've been actually told this to my face. And I'm like, oh my God, is that how people are describing me? And I really had to go back and think about it, that why is it that people are thinking that I'm a snob? And I realized that that's because I'm not the first person who will walk up to somebody and say hello. I will wait for people to come to me and say hello to me. So the impression that creates is, oh, so you think you are this high and mighty and you expect us to come and say hello, and then you will smile and say hello. Now, that's not my intention, but that's how it's playing up. And that starts to impact my brand and how people are experiencing me. And how you really start to, sort of the work on this, that self-awareness that was alluded to a little while back, is sit down and think about, what are your values? What are the things that are really important to you in your life? How that contributes to your personality? And then how does that manifest in your behaviors? Now, if I were to build on the same example of me being called a snob, I'm intrinsically a shy person. Now, and my profession expects me to be on these video calls, to run workshops, and I'm meeting new people all the time. So while my personality is shyness, I also value people and what they bring to the table. But I also then have to find that congruence in terms of how my behaviors are manifesting. If I'm going to stand there like this and say, okay, you come and say hello to me, even if I'm running the workshop, but I am the facilitator. So if you come and say hello to me, then I will smile at you. That is not going to be in service of what I'm doing. So it's very important to bring congruence in all of these three things and being intentional about it. I just put this together, and I'm, going to talk about, actually not talk about, just sort of the leaf I'm pulling out of what Vidhu said a little while back, your brand statement. What are you known for? If you enjoy solving problems, what kind of problems you like to solve? I look forward to challenges. What kind of challenges do you look forward to? How does that really shape your personality? How does that shape up who you really are? Are you curious about things? Are you really looking to learn? And through that learning, be able to make a difference to the organization that you're working with, or to the people that you will be working with? These are great statements for you to consider. Fill in the blanks. Now, of course, these are only samples, so don't copy them. I think we've said enough and plenty about copy pasting, so we don't want you to copy paste, but we really want you to make it about yourself, because that is really where impressions sort of get created. And impressions, there are three aspects. This is known as the Mehrabian law. 55% of our impression is created by how people see us, and it usually only takes about 30 seconds to a minute. if you're not going to show up even on a Zoom screen and you'll have your camera off, people are seeing a blank screen. It is creating an impression. What is the tonality and pitch in which you're speaking to people when you're interacting with this? Now, this also goes in terms of your written tone and pitch. The words and information. And when I talk about written tone and pitch, and I think we've spoken about this, political views, for instance, Vikas talked about the kind of things he's seeing that is being published on social media. I'll give you an example. In fact, there's one of and this happened a few months ago. There was somebody who was newly recruited at one of the big fours. And he was making this announcement on LinkedIn saying, how delighted he is about joining this big four. And he followed that up by saying, talking about the leadership skills that he's learned from Hitler. And this was just completely taboo at so many levels. And he was asked to leave the firm, and he'd practically been there for less than a week. So I think sometimes we're not sensitive about the tone and the words that we are choosing. So it's really important. And I think even more so in the digital world. And for those of you who are interested, there's a lovely book that got published during COVID times called Digital Body Language by Erica Dhawan. If any one of you is interested, I would really encourage you to get your hands on it, because it talks about etiquette in terms of our WhatsApp, emails, and all of that. So what is our body language in the digital world? Everything that's been spoken, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. Your personal brand has to be authentic. There are just no two ways about it. Genuine. You are who you are, and you have to have the courage to do that. And you have to be honest to yourself. I think that honesty is really important. Everybody's looking out for that integrity and that congruence. And it has to be consistent. It can't be, I have it today and I'm not going to have it tomorrow. We've talked about our personal brands evolving over a period of time, but they're not inconsistent. And I think we need to remember that. It is something that sort of scaffolds and builds as you go along. It evolves, but it is consistent because our values remain consistent. So to conclude, and my final beautiful quote that I love that Oscar Wilde said is, be yourself, everyone else is taken. How many times we fall prey to, to the bug of conformance. We don't want clones. We don't want people to conform. We don't want every person to be like the other person. And that's really where your personal brand comes into play. So I hope I have been able to summarize everything that the panelists spoke about. If there's anything that I missed, my last call out to the panelists that you may want to build on.
From that Hitler example, I always say this to people: when in doubt, do not do it.
Yeah. That's so profound. When in doubt, don't do it. When in doubt, don't say it. We used to, in my banking days, we used to say, do something known as a newspaper test. That whatever you do today, what happens if it gets published in the newspaper the next day? How will you feel about it? And I think that's a great test to have. Thank you so much, Dipali. Vikas.
Oh, fabulous share, Aditi. And I think the final word from me would be that the digital footprints always remain for eternity. So be wary of what you put out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Vidhu, last but by no means least.
No, it's been wonderful. I think I would just leave people by saying reflect. Just reflect and try to understand who you are. That's the key. Don't worry about how you'll be perceived. Just focus on your own inner self. Find your strengths.
Oh, beautiful. Getting to know ourselves is the most important thing in terms of building our personal brand, because it's personal after all. So, so about time we got to know ourselves and build our brand. So thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure to have the audience. I still see there's so much that's happening in the chat box, and I know Vibhuti, you must be pretty much snowballed with that. I've really enjoyed the conversations with all of you, Vidhu, Vikas, Dipali. It's been such a pleasure. It was so insightful, and really look forward to continuing this. And thank you so much, NHRDN, once again, for the opportunity, and we'll look forward to it.
Yeah, and the other important thing that I would like to share is that all of you joined in. Thank you so much. And we have more sessions planned in this series, which are going to be equally important for you to prepare as you step into your corporate job. So please keep a lookout on the LinkedIn handle of NHRD in Delhi and NCR chapter. We will keep on sharing the next topics, which will also be shared by Aditi, soon. So if you really enjoyed this conversation, spread the word to your friends, and we will look forward to see you in the next session as well.
Thank you
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Vibhuti.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you, and
Thank you,
goodbye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Bye.